Remember, it feels like it was back in the Pleistocene era, but I think it was actually August and September of this year when the Democrats seemed energized and united in a way we'd never seen before. Well, now Democratic leadership just seems to be obeying in advance at rates that can only be described as alarming. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Nerd Avengers. Joining me are Brian Karaman, Adam Parkomenko. Hi, guys. It's great to see you. Wow. I'm calling this Democrats obeying in advance part infinity because, Brian, the hits just keep on coming, don't they? We are looking at, and it's, to be fair, it's not just Democrats, but it's more shocking when it's Democrats who you would think would be fighting tooth and nail against the incoming authoritarian regime. But probably the most obvious news in this category is that FBI Director Christopher Wray is retiring, so he doesn't have to go through the trouble of being fired by Donald Trump. Now, I've heard a counter argument to the idea that this is a capitulation and that he's basically doing Donald a solid, and I don't honestly know. I don't know enough about this to know if this is accurate, but there is an argument going around out there that by resigning in advance, Wray is forcing forcing Patel to go through the Senate confirmation hearings, whereas if Donald went through the process of firing Wray, he could install Patel as an acting director. Again, I don't know if that's true. What it seems like to me is sheer capitulation, just because Wray doesn't want to go through the hassle of bothering or make Republicans look bad, because if Donald were forced to fire him, Republicans would have to answer for that, because as we know, FBI directors are appointed to 10-year terms, and only two in modern history have been fired. One by Bill Clinton for cause, like a Republican president would have. I think it was William Sessions would have fired him, and the other one, of course, was James Comey, who was fired by Donald Trump because Comey would not pledge loyalty to him. So this would be Donald's second firing an FBI director. And I personally think that is an albatross that should have been hung around the Republican senator's neck. And Chris Wray just doesn't want to deal with it. What do you think? You're muted.
I'm sorry. Yes.
That's what I think.
Yes to everything you just said. That's
okay.
Yeah, he could. But still, Donald Trump could appoint him in a recess appointment. Could still do it as an acting director, so it doesn't really take that off the table. It's the appearance versus reality argument. But what you said earlier about authoritarian is what you really have to keep in mind as you go forward. And you don't have to go. This is going to be class warfare. We've already seen with the CEO that was gunned down, the populism that swept Donald Trump into office, he's counting on so he can make his appointments, will not last. And look, you don't have to go any further than what he tweeted. He said, any person or company investing $1 billion or more in the United States of America will receive fully expedited approvals and permits, including but no way limited to all environmental approvals. Get ready to rock. So he needs somebody in the DOJ and at the FBI who's going to back him, and that's not going to be Wray. Then you've got Elon Musk, who's saying that he's the bestie for Donald Trump. He's saying that insurance companies, like any company, have a duty to shareholders to maximize profits, no matter how ruthlessly the radical left, espousing otherwise, needs to grow the hell up. What they are going to do is to bleed this country dry. Christopher Wray should have, in my opinion, stuck around to make him fire him, just so that we could see it a little more clearly. What he did was a chess move against a guy playing checkers who's still beating him. And it's every time you move forward with these guys, you give in to them ahead of time, that plays into their hand. And I don't think, Mary, to be honest with you, there are many people in the United States right now, particularly those in Congress, in the Senate, or in power, and particularly members of the media, who understand the class warfare coming. This is more frightening to me than anything else that Donald Trump has done. And it's going to be facilitated by the FBI and the DOJ. You can be prosecuted for extreme, obnoxious profits, especially in the health insurance industry. You can be exploited, because if you give $1 billion, that's called a bribe. And the DOJ and the FBI usually investigate those things. So what he's setting up ahead of time is a compliant DOJ, FBI, every element in the Justice Department that could hold him accountable. He is knocking that door down and opening himself up to bilk the United States. And Christopher Wray, I'm sorry, I appreciate the sentiment, but you should have stuck around. And they should be shouting about this from the highest mountaintop continuously until January 20th and far afterwards. So yes, everything you said, I agree with. At the end of the day, it's the bending of the knee prior to the installment of him as president that frightens me more than anything else, or is a concern more than anything else about the coming class warfare.
Yeah, and Adam, that I think is exactly the problem here. We see a lot of people as increasingly on the left, which again is much more galling. I don't expect much from any Republicans, even those who oppose Donald at this point. It's this idea that they think they can beat Donald at his own game or something. I have a couple of clips. I'm going to start with Senator Blumenthal, who has been on a tear. I mean, first he's praising Elon Musk for being a champion of the First Amendment, whereas I think Democrats should be saying, why is Elon Musk anywhere near the executive branch of our government? And then this is a clip of Blumenthal on with Jim Acosta.
That this bill fully supports free expression and the First Amendment. Elon Musk.
Oh, so sorry. I'm in charge of the show today, and I suck.
That this bill fully supports free expression and the First Amendment. Elon Musk is the champion among big tech executives of First Amendment values and principles. And what we have done in some of our changes is to make clear that there's no effect of censorship, and the opposition from big tech spending millions of dollars on lobbyists and lawyers is simply the result of their desire to continue to profit by driving toxic content at kids. Your concern as a parent, my concern is mirrored by countless parents across the country, a diverse coalition that enabled us to win in the United States Senate 91-3. I hope we'll give it a vote in the House. It'll pass overwhelmingly.
Yeah, okay, great. I apparently got my clips mixed up. The other thing, Adam, that Senator Blumenthal said was that he's confident that his Republican colleagues in the Senate are going to do their due diligence when it comes to Pete Hegseth and come to their senses and not confirm him. Bullshit. But you, Adam, like I and Brian, are connoisseurs of Twitter. Does it ever occur to you that Elon Musk is a free speech warrior or somebody who cares at all about the First Amendment? You're muted.
He's muted too.
I don't know. It's a plague.
Are you there, Adam?
There you go.
Oh, okay. Thanks. No, it hasn't occurred to me. And just to add one thing, to go back to Chris Wray, I think that one, we've confirmed he is the gutless chicken shit that we all thought he was. If you go back to January 6th, he actually disappeared, in the days and weeks after, and went missing. And I think that, after Watergate, the tenure of the director position was changed to 10 years to avoid politicizing it. And at this point, it wasn't within 24 hours that Donald Trump was attacking him. Jim Jordan said he was going to investigate him. Again, I just want to reiterate, the only way for all of us to, get through this is to fight, right? And that's not what's happening. So I don't have as much confidence in terms of what Blumenthal is saying. I spent 3 years working at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 15 years as a reserve with DC Police, and technology has only improved. If we had a Mark Foley or a former Republican Speaker of the House today with the technology we do now, they probably would be preying on people in a very different way. And this is, as a parent, critical. Another critical thing that we need to get through, and we should be hammering it. There's only 39 days right now until January 20th.
It's incredible. And we get, we've talked about this a lot, and we continue to talk about it because it continues to be an issue. And, Norman has pointed out many times, where are the hearings? Why, if, Donald's saying that the FBI is not going to vet anybody he's nominating, why aren't the Democrats doing it in hearings? And then, I guess even worse, it's the inaction is horrible because it's demoralizing people. You have people all over social media, Democrats, saying, what is even the point of being a Democrat anymore? But then you get,
and Mary, to that point, a lot of people are saying, hey, if I became a Republican today, I'd be in the majority immediately, and maybe able to have an impact on my colleagues.
Yeah, exactly. And, some of it is, I think, what we've talked about a lot, anticipatory obedience. And some of it is, again, they think they're playing some kind of 11-dimensional chess against a checkers player, as Brian said, or, they're just looking for a way to get their own power. And one of the most inexplicable things that's happening is John Fetterman. First I want to look at he's on Truth Social now, so that's interesting. Which I mean, maybe there are reasons to be. I don't know. This is something he wrote on Truth Social. My first truth: the Trump hush money and Hunter Biden cases were both bullshit, and pardons are appropriate. Weaponizing the judiciary for blatant partisan gain diminishes the collective faith in our institutions and sows further division. Well, you're half right, John. To call a case in which Donald was found guilty by a jury of his peers of 34 criminal counts bullshit is kind of an insult. Don't get me wrong, there are cases in which, that's how I feel about the Daniel Penny verdict, guy who murdered an unarmed black man on a New York City subway. But you can't pretend Donald didn't get his due process, and you can't pretend that he was targeted in the way Hunter Biden was targeted. And here's John Fetterman on The View.
It's undeniable that the case against Hunter Biden was really politically motivated, but I also think it's true that the trial in New York for Trump that was political as well too. Now it's that, and in both cases, I think a pardon is appropriate, and I really think collectively, America's confidence in these kinds of institutions have been damaged by these kinds of cases, and we cannot allow these kinds of institutions to be weaponized against our political opponents. And it's very clear both trials were politically motivated and weaponized that on the other side.
Well, first of all, none of that's, so much of that is not true. And I guess one question I have is, who is that for? Who is that for? Can you imagine what would happen if Joe Biden pardoned Donald Trump?
Yeah. But let's talk about that, about the idea of a pardon. Those are state charges. The president of the United States cannot even issue it. Don't you even understand the institution in which you serve? I understand why he did it. He's appealing because he's in Pennsylvania, which is a purple state at best. I get it. But your language is poorly chosen. And in point of fact, it was a jury of his peers in Manhattan who found him guilty of the appropriate charge. Now, you may agree or you may disagree with that, but that doesn't mean it was politically motivated. That's the fallacy that you have to approach there. John, you would have been better off picking something else as your touchstone there to use. I understand the reason why you want to reach across the aisle. I understand that coming together is important. I get
Why?
unity and all
Why?
that, because at the end of the day, it's United States of America. I hope still.
No, it's
But
not.
I'm still hoping for it. I still have hopes and prayers for our dying democracy. All I'm saying is I understand his reasoning. It's just muddled, poor thinking, and badly done. And at the end of the day, you're not appealing to anybody across the aisle. You only are antagonizing those who elected you to office. So it's a poor political move, and it doesn't even acknowledge the truth. It acknowledges no facts. How are you going to, if you want to make that appeal, there are better ways to do it, and that's just poorly done.
Okay, but Adam, as Brian pointed out, Donald can't. Only the governor of New York State can pardon Donald, and it's going to be useless exercise anyway, because like everything else, those charges are going to go away. If he even gets sentenced, we're hearing now
Only the
that
governor
it's
of
just,
New York can pardon. She probably will.
well, yeah, well,
I'm joking.
let's not go there. There's only so much I can handle in one day. But that it'll, if anything, it'll be a fine, and that'll happen in God knows when, after he's out of office, if he's ever out of office. So to me, the idea, though, of saying Donald and pardon in the same sentence is insanity. Again, who is that for? Who are you making common cause with? And why does that seem to be the prominent Democratic strategy when we are ready to hand over the keys of our democracy to a fascist authoritarian regime? What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, look, what the fuck are we doing here? I mean, right? This is like,
yeah,
we work so hard, and then we get to a place where Sinema and Manchin are leaving, and we need John Fetterman and others, and maybe a couple governors like Jared to take the place. There is no vacuum that needs to be filled on our side for anything other than fighting back, holding people accountable, and actually delivering for the American people. And this is extremely disappointing. I mean, if he had come out and said, the messaging, the hush money messaging was wrong. Sure. Okay. Because it was election interference, and we all got really tired of hearing about this whole quote unquote hush money. Yeah. But I have no idea what he's doing, what he gains from it, other than, it just feels like we have one less person on our side going into a fight where we have not enough people.
Yeah. And, you mentioned Kirsten Sinema. She and Joe Manchin once again teamed up to deny Democrats a majority on the National Labor Relations Board, which is meant to help the American worker. But nope, their parting gift is to give the Republicans the advantage, which only benefits Donald Trump. So it's a kick in the teeth to feel that our leaders are either completely absent, looking at you, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or just saying, yeah, let's help. Let's give these guys whatever they want. Let's work together. How do you work together with the guy who tried to overturn our government? How do you work together with a guy who stole highly classified, sensitive documents that probably put a lot of our allies in danger? How do you work together with a team that is going to hand over the DNI to a Russian asset? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It seemed to me the only viable solution here was to become the party of united opposition. And I think that's the only pro-democracy stance to take. I'm sorry, I'm rambling and ranting, but I just find
it's
it
a good rant.
Thank you so much. It's just very, very
well, my question
is not strong enough a word. So wait, I just want to shift gears, because the other thing we're dealing with, Brian, is the fact that we're now finding out just how much Republicans and Donald lied to get into office, which is just, once again, exposing the media's abject failures. This is what Donald had to say about grocery prices during the election.
It all happened very quickly. This will rapidly drive prices down, lower interest rates, and put more money into the pockets of American consumers. It'll also bring your grocery bill way down. I have more complaints on grocery. The word grocery, you know, it's sort of simple word, but it sort of means like everything you eat. The stomach is speaking. It always does.
Oh, shut up. Can you imagine? Like,
I'm glad you said that.
4 more years of this. My God. So day one, groceries, you know, the stomach, whatever gibberish he was saying, the message there was, yep, I alone can fix it. Grocery prices are going to come way down. Well, this is the tune he's singing now. I don't think so. Talking about grocery prices. Look, they got them up. I'd like to bring them down. It's hard to bring things down once they're up, you know? It's very hard, but I think they will. Yeah.
I have a concept of a plan.
So yeah, he has a concept of a plan, Adam, and here we are. Because they're acting like they have a mandate, and then we know they're going to renege on every single thing they promised to the American people.
It's not a surprise, right, for the guy who's never changed a diaper or, you know, been doing everything else that
he soiled a few, but I don't know if he's ever changed them.
Low hanging fruit, man.
I know, I couldn't help it. You left it out there. I had to get it.
All right.
I mean, maybe this is a question for both of you, but the one thing that I thought is sort of interesting is like, why is he admitting to that? You know, the guy that basically, like, when he gets called out on this stuff says, you know, we're going to drill, baby, drill. And it's like, has nothing to do with the topic that we're on. Right. Why is he even saying that? Right. Because he always has a reason. 3 months from now, he can say like, oh, that's because of this. That's because of the Hunter Biden, you know, just a bunch of bullshit. But the fact that he's kind of acknowledging and admitting that in December, I don't really quite understand why he's being honest about part of it after lying.
Logic never figures in his universe.
Well, I think part of it is because what does he care? We have to remember, I mean, it may not be true because Republicans may change the Constitution or something, but he's a lame duck. You know, he's not running for, theoretically, not running for re-election again. So part of it is like, why does he care? And why should he take responsibility for anything? Because it is going to be difficult to bring prices down, especially in light of the government these people are putting together.
Especially with him.
Yeah, especially with him. So,
he also has a history, right, of listening to the last person he spoke to, right?
Yes.
So it's possible going into that, you know, maybe even the reporter was talking about it, and like he just doesn't know what to say. So he
doesn't
inevitably says something that, right.
I have been in front of him where he simply just didn't understand the issue we were questioning him about. And indeed, he parroted what he heard last. I've heard him, I would ask a question and I go, do you really think blah, 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 blah? And he could sit down and he would go to the next person, then take the question that I asked and turn it around as a statement of fact when it was a question. I've seen that firsthand. The man is not capable of cogent thought. A logic applied to him doesn't ever work. But the fact of the matter is, this is another indication of what I spoke about at the beginning, and that's class warfare. 6 companies own or operate about 75% of the grocery supplies in this country. So you are looking at an oligarchy that he's going to support, and of course he's not going to be able to bring down prices. He doesn't want them down.
No.
Yeah. So anyone from MAGA listening, now is your last chance to get quail eggs at the price that they're currently at.
Eggs. It's all about eggs.
Yes, it was the price of quail eggs that swung the election. And listen, this is all of a piece with the oligarchy they're put in place, the plutocrats, the what have you, and they're going to cover over the economic stuff with their culture wars, which again were completely one-sided. So this is what we're hearing. The House approves an $895 billion defense bill. $1 billion, right? You know, Elon Musk is pretending that he's going to cut defense spending. And who's going to help him do that? Cenk Uygur, whatever. So an $895 billion defense bill with military pay raises, et cetera, probably something, sadly, that pay raise is great, but that's an insane budget for defense, for the Pentagon. But Democrats didn't support it. Why? Because Republicans slipped in a ban on transgender care for minors. Just to clarify, TRICARE is the military version of healthcare, and this bill denies the ability of parents in the military to get transgender care for their children. And meanwhile, we have the just execrable Nancy Grace running around attacking in the name of protecting women, attacking trans people right and left, to the point where she's actually making up an assault. She claims that she was assaulted. This is her walking around with her sling. And witnesses.
Wait, can I just say one thing, Mary? She said a
Please.
trans man supporter. Like, was there somebody outside the bathroom with a sign that says trans man supporter? I like, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I think
They're lurking in
I
bathrooms.
think the word for this is
hanging out.
made up. So, according to witnesses, a trans man shook her hand. And I guess if you're against the existence of trans people, you would consider that an attack. But yes, she was so horribly wounded that she refused care from the paramedics. And the person who shook her hand was arrested. So we're just in this very...
She's lying, and the only people who don't seem to know it are the Washington Post.
Right? Isn't that weird? So weird. I'm really regretting canceling my subscription to the Washington Post. So
even Jussie Smollett was one and done, you know, and he
Right?
quitted, but like he didn't go back a second time.
Exactly. So yeah, Mace is going to keep doing this because there's nothing she likes more than being in front of a camera and getting that attention. I know we're giving her attention now, but we're giving her attention to say that we think she's despicable, which is probably not the kind of attention she's looking for. But because of how the election was framed, because of how the stakes of the election were framed, this is the kind of thing that the Republicans are claiming a mandate on this kind of, like, every time you see something, it's like, this is what voters voted for. No, they didn't. Voters know nothing about this stuff. Or, like, voters, how much do you think voters actually know about what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening with Russia, what's happening with all sorts of issues that do have an impact on them? But I don't think most voters think beyond the price, whatever they're paying for things.
Eggs.
And yes, eggs. And, yes, obviously some people do vote on their racism and their misogyny, but we're in this, it feels like we're like just living in a vacuum right now. And, people who are in a position to fill it, as you mentioned earlier, Adam, are doing it the wrong way. We don't need another Kirsten Sinema. We need a leader. I don't know why that's not Kamala Harris. I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know why people in the House aren't making more of a fuss. Again, I don't know why Democratic senators aren't doing more to inform the American people of the horror show facing us if a lot of these nominations nominees are confirmed. But as we're just like sort of floating our way towards the horrors of January 20th, 2025, things like this are happening. Now, presidents don't typically appoint the head of Voice of America, but Donald has decided he's going to, and he's appointing an insane conspiracy theorist who hates immigrants. And, for those who don't know, Voice of America is an international state-run media outlet of the United States that reaches many, many tens of millions of people across the globe. And you have people at hundreds of millions. You have people at the VOA saying they're terrified if Carrie Lake takes over. Adam, it's like the equivalent of having Newsmax and OAN and Fox on every single television at our military bases.
I'm curious if like the VOA headquarters is like hard to get out of or something, because one thing that we do know from previous reports is, as you said, Carrie Lake hates immigrants, but Donald Trump hates her and wanted her to stop spending so much time at Mar-a-Lago. So I'm curious, the setup, is it like, yeah, like is the VOA headquarters in an area where it's like, you know, very hard to travel to Mar-a-Lago and the White House? I don't think so, but look, this is a woman who lies, right? We were talking about IVF in the debate. She didn't even know the 3 initials for IVF. It's pretty terrifying.
Yeah, and Brian, again, VOA, very influential, international.
It'll have new initials once she takes over, right? It'll be whatever she calls it, because she can't even say IVF.
That's true. When she does not know what VOA is.
OAV.
VOA's in DC. It'll be a little harder for her to get to Mar-a-Lago. She won't be able to get on Air Force One with Donnie. But it's, to your point, Mary, a VOA is always, if you're a reporter in the White House, you know, VOA has always been the propaganda arm of the U.S. government. Always has been. That's, you know, this is just calling it out and making it that in spades. It's not, you know, VOA also had a reputation of trying to do like public broadcasting, tried to do like PBS, some real hardcore stuff, and occasionally hired some really good people, and the reports were generally reputable, but it was always overseas, seen as you know, the American side of the news. This is going to be different. This is going to be that on steroids. This is going to be nothing but all MAGA all the time. It's going to be something out of, you know, I keep using the word Orwellian, but, you know, it's going to be that type of broadcast. It's going to be Donnie is right and everybody else is going to hell. And by God in heaven, these are the facts. No matter what the facts say, this is it. And that's going to be, and I always do that in a Southern accent for some reason, but none.
But Julie in the chat calls it voice of Carrie.
Yeah, well, it's going to be, it will be the voice of Carrie. It's going to be all Carrie all the time. And Donnie hopes that it keeps her out of his hair, I guess, because she's going to just love the attention. And that's what it's going to be, the all Carrie show. So it will be interesting to see who gets those first 2 rows in the White House briefing room after Trump comes in office. I'm sure the Voice of America will have one, OAN, Newsmax, Fox, the Epic Times. All of them will take up the first 2 rows and kick the AP, CBS, NBC, all of them back into the last 2 rows where they'll never be called upon. You'll see only those people like Voice of America, Newsmax, and those who support Donald Trump in the pool, whatever protective pool is put together that Donald Trump will allow. And you're going to see the further bastardization of the news to the point where it is going to be nothing but entertainment, infotainment, and bullshit. And so that's it. This just is another indicator. It's another act of the compass pointing due south.
Yeah. All right. So I want to take a step back and just look at strategies here, because I think, especially given what appears to be the abdication of many Democratic leaders, you know, Democratic voters are feeling like they've been left in the dust, and really the only communication we're getting is from the right. The left isn't telling us what they're going to do. They're not telling us how they're preparing. They don't seem to be preparing. They seem to be saying, oh, you know, let's just get along. And I know that we've had this conversation many times about why that is. And the answer always seems, well, you know, they've been in the Senate forever. They live in a bubble. Collegiality. They think that the people across the aisle have their best intentions, whatever. But it's only Democrats. Republicans kick Democrats in the teeth all the time and have no use for the dinosaur known as bipartisanship. So I just don't think that's enough of an explanation. But this is where we are right now, presumably. I mean, it was lovely to see that President Biden pardoned some people and commuted some sentences, but basically it does feel like we're in the wilderness. So how do we deal with the next 39 days? You know, it's really easy to get riled up about things like making Kimberly Guilfoyle an ambassador, right? Or
Sorry.
well, because it's so insulting. You know, it's so insulting. But I think some things, or we have to distinguish between the rights motives. I think some of it is just, you know, jabbing the pin into us and just trying to make us crazy. And that's the kind of stuff we have to let go. But then there are the legitimately dangerous things that are going on. Well done. I don't know the significance of that hat, but it's
everyone else had a hat on. I thought maybe I just had one.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. You know, so we're in this period of time where, in a way, like Donald's appointments and his nominations aren't really news. The news is going to happen when the confirmation hearings come about. But there is a very obvious realignment happening in terms of the kinds of people he's nominating, knowing that the thread by which American democracy is hanging is going to be cut or held in place by Republican senators. That is not very comforting. And then, you know, then we're also looking at a global realignment. We just got this news.
Sources have confirmed to CBS News that President-elect Donald Trump has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to his inauguration next month. Trump apparently extended the invitation shortly after winning the election. Has a leader of a foreign nation ever attended a U.S. presidential inauguration before? I mean, what would be the significance if he accepted?
This would be unusual.
Unusual, Adam. Is that how you would describe this?
I mean, Donald Trump didn't attend Joe Biden's inauguration. This is such a clusterfuck. I'm still thinking about John Fetterman right now, which is probably, I was trying to figure out if he's going to be in the first row or the second row at the White House come January 20th. But look, I think that we have a huge problem on our hands. And I go back to this sort of DNC race. We don't really have much of anything. And I think that the party has really got to start to set the agenda and be on the offense and actually have a communication system in which we can get the messaging and the word out. We talk about it all the time. Republicans say X, Y, and Z, and then every Republican in the country is saying it, and that's, you know, taken as gospel by everybody. And we just don't have any apparatus for that. And I think there's a lot of sort of, you know, building from scratch that needs to go on here because we've got nothing left. But we also can't lose sight of these races in the states. You know, like under Obama, we lost a lot of the seats. We got them back. And it's going to be critical to, you know, especially in Virginia in 2025 here with the governor's race, that we start to flip some of these seats.
Yeah. And Brian, that's why it's so important to do what Democrats aren't doing, which is cater to our base for a change. You know, pay attention to how we feel and what we think and what we want. And that is not happening by any stretch of the imagination. And part of it is, again, the right, Donald in particular, like making these moves that are just kind of, you know, on the one hand, just annoying, infuriating, and insulting, but also making points. And here's another one. But before I play this clip, I want to point out that what I think should have happened is that, or should happen, and obviously it won't, I think any Democrats, including President Biden, should show up to this inauguration. And the fact that they're going to, and that Kamala Harris will probably be there, that in my view is not the way to go. But here is another. I mean, this is a video that Donnie put up, and it just shows you how difficult, shall we say, things are going to be with the Western Alliance when Donald gets back in. I can't look at any more of that. But anyway, as you may or may not know, Donald was named Times Person of the Year. Whatever. And
also was Hitler, Stalin, Khomeini.
Yeah, no. I mean, a lot of people are upset about that, but Time has always made it very clear it's not the best person. it's the most influential person, it doesn't mean they're good. It just means that, and I mean, I don't think they're wrong necessarily.
Is this going to replace the fake one that is up at Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, sadly, he can now say legitimately he is.
He's the new
Or is
Big
this his
Lebowski.
second?
Yeah, I exactly. I don't think he's going to replace it.
I'm going to go next to it.
He'll
Yeah.
just pretend that he's he's has more times magazine covers than anybody in the history of the universe. But
No one ever has.
what's troubling about that, besides the fact that we still have to deal with this person for 4 more years, which is just cruel and unusual punishment, is okay. So just a little quick history of Time magazine covers. Last year, Person of the Year was Taylor Swift. Okay. The year before that, it was President Zelensky of Ukraine. So clearly that was about, he's making room for the new Time Person of the Year, which is Donald. But why wasn't he kicking off Taylor Swift? Because she was on the cover last year. No, he had to go back 2 years to kick off President Zelensky, which is, I guess you could say, he's as afraid of Swifties as he is of Vladimir Putin, perhaps.
Yeah, and Travis Kelce.
Yes,
Facts
yes.
don't matter. That's their message. Facts don't matter.
Well, but the other message is
To us,
screw Ukraine. And
Yes.
that is the terrifying part of this, because it shows you just how ignorant and uneducated Americans are about this issue that is central to the future of Western democracy, right? I mean, is that overstating it?
No, and I've been to Ukraine. I've been to Syria. I can tell you that the fall of Syria is showing you how vulnerable Putin is right now. The move that Donald Trump has made by inviting the leader of China to his inauguration is also a thumb in the nose to Russia. And it's also showing Russia and Putin, hey, you may have got me here, but screw you. I'm not gonna pay you back. I'll pay China, because everything with Donald Trump is transactional. Everything with him. There is a message that he sent there with that invitation to Ping that tells you exactly what's going to happen. We are in the and do not. This is one thing that Harris said really well when she accepted the nomination, is Donald Trump is an unserious man who will have serious repercussions for this country and the world. And that's true. And so he takes everything transactionally as he approaches each deal. There's no, NATO doesn't matter to him. Ukraine doesn't matter to him. And as I said, I've been there, and I can guarantee you folks that Ukraine will never bow to Russia. All Russia can do, and I said it when I was there, they could burn that country down, but they're never going to get their obedience or their fealty. That will not happen. And the reason why they want it is because it's one of the largest grain baskets in the world, next to the United States, responsible for a lot of grain and rare metals that you need for a lot of things, including, batteries and, lithium batteries and stuff like that. That's why Afghanistan was important. So this is all about money. This is all about money. And Donald Trump is trying to find a way around spending it and gutting Russia and getting China in. But don't forget the biggest problem that you talked about earlier, and both of you pointed out. The Democrats have always allowed the Republicans to frame the argument. And then they respond to the accusations and the frame that the Republicans set up. Quit telling me why Donald Trump sucks. Everybody, including, if you look at polls, most people who voted for Donald Trump think he sucks. Tell us why you do better. Quit telling me why Donald Trump sucks. If the Democrats had spent, the best thing and it just kills me that people still don't get it. They think that $1 trillion infrastructure bill gave us 6 EV, stations in California, and that's it. And I've traveled back and forth across the country 4 times during this campaign, and there's construction on highways, railroads, infrastructure everywhere.
Right. Yes, I don't want to talk about Democratic messaging right now, because it's done. The election's over. We lost. And I mean, I completely agree with you. And this is a problem that the Democrats need to solve. And hopefully the next leader of the DNC will figure this out. Like, the fact that immigration is the second most important issue to voters is because Democrats allowed Republicans to frame it that way and came at it from a defensive posture. I'm more concerned at the moment with the perceptions among Americans of the position of Ukraine, the position of Russia, and I'm not entirely convinced that Donald invited Xi as a power move to prove something to Putin. I don't think Donald is any less a puppet of Vladimir Putin. I think there's something more tactical about not inviting him, maybe because it would be like, I mean, inviting Xi is just weird, but inviting Putin would have been completely over the top and unacceptable.
We could find out 2 weeks from now, though, that he invited Kim Jong-un, and maybe it takes a little longer for the envelope to get there.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. Someone texted me while we're on here, and they said Democrats think everyone is rationally thinking about politics by which policies they support. Versus Republicans, they know the media and politicians set the agenda and they tell people what to think. I do think that we all need to take a step back and have a different approach. But the word that you just mentioned, perception, I think is key. Perception is everything. If you go back to the 2016 campaign, folks were like, "Oh my gosh, were their votes changed?" There weren't, no one hacked. There were votes weren't changed, but the perceptions of voters were changed. When people were going in there thinking that Hillary Clinton was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and everything else, that perception changed votes at
and
the
that she
voting
was
booth.
dying
because she got sick in advance of attending a 9/11 memorial, right? Of all things, just trying to be there and make it through, even though she wasn't feeling well.
That's right. Because she was our senator when that happened, people. She was one of New York's senators when that happened. So she felt an obligation and she pushed herself when she probably shouldn't have. But other than that, she was fine. Yes, perception. But Adam, I want to stick with that idea of perception because we have heard this, that the reason people voted the way they did was not because of the issues, but because of their perceptions of the issues. And I think, the Overton window has shifted. So it used to be perceptions about things outside of one's personal experience were changed. Hillary Clinton is dying of all these diseases. Votes are being tampered with, to people's perceptions about what's actually going on in their own lives. So people know on some level, because they must be experiencing it, that the economy is better and, we're all not dying of COVID anymore. But their perceptions of those things were shifted so radically by the inundation of right-wing propaganda that they actually said with a straight face two things that are so false that it's hard to imagine this was a thing that people believed. We were better off 4 years ago at the height of COVID when thousands of Americans were dying every day, and that Joe Biden lost the 2020 election and it was stolen from Donald Trump. I mean, that's what's terrifying to me, that these are easily verifiable things in people's own experiences.
Yeah,
and
I mean, the idea that people think that they were better off when they were wiping their ass with a face cloth, right? Because they couldn't get any toilet paper is just crazy. I mean,
or burying people in sea containers.
Yeah. How do you overcome that? I mean, it's I wish I could sit here but the one thing I do know is there was a discrepancy between certain elected officials and voters feeling like they could trust those individuals, and those individuals had gotten certain things done or have been around, right? Like if you look at a Ruben Gallego, or you look at the Nevada Senate race and others, you had, and ticket splitting is not uncommon when you go out west, but you had people who believed this was the right choice and believed that, maybe 107 days wasn't enough, right? Maybe she needed 200 days. But I think part of the problem too is going back where we should have had a primary. And this isn't a conversation that should have been taking place.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, bingo. He promised. Look, when he came in office, he said he was only going to run for one term, and then he lied, and then he stayed around, and then George Clooney, who's supposedly is.
But just a quick clarification. I don't think he said that specifically. I think he said he's a transitional president, which implies. Oh, he did that directly. Okay.
He said he was a transitional president, and here was the words: do not expect me to be here more than one term. But that's how he couched
Well,
it.
that's a fudge, but yeah. So you can't call it a lie, but you can
he
call
told
it a
the truth.
misrepresentation. Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
That part he didn't lie about.
To
Yeah.
our detriment.
unintentionally. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think, and this is shocking to me that I can say this, because up until recently I've been saying that Joe Biden was the greatest president in my lifetime, and I think between how he handled the trade-off, his decision not to run, and how he's handling this transition, I don't think that anymore. I really don't. It's just
Well, I think he's mentally compromised, and I think he's yeah, I agree with you, Mary. But I
okay.
think
But then, I mean, that just makes his decision even more his decision to stay in the race even more inexplicable and less forgivable. So I'm sure there's plenty of blame to go around. But look, this is where we are, right? This is where we are in America. And again, I think we have two major issues that we're dealing with. One, we've been talking about for a long time. We've been dealing about it for a long time, and we've been trying to figure out how to deal with it going forward. And that is the media siloing and the fact that the right owns lock, stock, and barrel influential media, right? So what do we do about that? But the other thing, which is not something I was anticipating, is the seemingly wholesale abdication of the Democratic Party. And I know that this is probably a little inside baseball for some people, but Adam, I just wanted to talk for a couple of minutes about how can a DNC chair affect change? Like what is available to such a person? Especially since right now it seems that in the Democratic Party, the only leaders we can rely on, hopefully, are Democratic governors. Bashir, Whitmer, Pritzker is definitely leading the charge, Shapiro, Gavin Newsom, et cetera, et cetera.
Just to go back to your inauguration thing for 1 second.
Mhm.
So we basically shifted from these people are fascists to, all right, let's go to the inauguration.
Yep.
All right. So we get that out there.
Yep.
Look, there's not much they can do as a DNC chair, but what they can do is they can be innovative and think outside the box. And one thing I think they should do is they should hold a press conference outside the White House every single day under Donald Trump, and they should bring in surrogates like Gavin Newsom and others and have them speak every day. And we should have our own press conference every single day. People were asking Tom Perez and others to do this in the past. It didn't happen. It's something that needs to happen. And that's the key. We need to take our megaphone that doesn't exist, build it, and speak directly to the American people, where otherwise we're not going to have an opportunity to do so. We need to put on a show with facts, right? And probably have better messaging. But everyone loves this sort of the art piece of it. When we did these protests outside the White House that were called the Kremlin Annex for a couple of years, we brought opera singers to sing at 11 p.m. So Donald Trump had noise outside the White House. We brought mariachi bands, we put taco trucks on every corner. So I think that you got to be creative.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You and Acosta were two of the best. I just think that we've got to be creative, and we got to do something differently, and something that breaks through.
Yeah, one thing you can't do is at the winter meeting of the DNC, when they started out by the land acknowledgement statement, which we acknowledge this land we live on. It used to be Native American land. But most of the Native Americans I spoke to didn't care about that. They're worried about jobs. They want to be spoken to plainly. And instead of that kind of they're
worried about jobs and Kristi Noem.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. And so instead of talking about what happened in the past, let's talk about the future and how you make it better, because that's what people want to hear. And some of that, what the right labels as woke culture, put it aside. Make it count in the decisions that you make for people today. In other words, deal with people directly, where they live. Why did the sound of eggs, resound so well? Well, because the Democrats simply can't message what they did well. And so people believed what they heard because the Republicans, again, framed the damn argument. And to your point, Adam, by God, every damn day, I don't care if it's on True Social, I don't care if it's on X, or as we call it, Shitter, or Facebook, or wherever you do it, you have to counter the message. You cannot say it once and think that sinks in, because it's the repetition. That's what Trump is excellent at doing, and what the Democrats failed to do is to drive home the message. They've done things better. To your point, Mary, yeah, I thought that Biden did very well in his first 2.5 years. And in fact, I still think they could have won if they had just talked about two things, and that was a woman's right, to health care and the damn infrastructure bill. But they got away from all of their messaging, and that the message that she came out with after the end, or when she was nominated, we won't go back. That was simple. That was great. You could see it, and it would play out wherever in a variety of different scenarios. And they kind of gave that up until the very end. Why in the hell don't the Democrats, the Republicans are great at winning. The Democrats are great at legislating. And I wish the hell the Democrats were much better at communicating and running races, because they're not.
I think the last thing, Mary, the solution is not to abandon marginalized people simply because we have to talk about eggs. You can do both.
Right. Exactly. And I think we cannot discount all of the structural disadvantages that Democrats have. We also cannot discount the fact that the Republican Party enabled a traitor who nominated a traitor to be at the top of their ticket and engaged in, Elon Musk spent $250 million alone to buy the presidency. And we now know why, because one, it gives him access to power he wouldn't have otherwise. And two, before the election, he was worth about $260 billion. Now he's worth over $450 billion. So that's a problem too. I'm not saying that Democrats shouldn't get better at this stuff, but I think at this point, it's always about the messaging. But even if the Democrats got the messaging, they don't have the communication infrastructure. That has to be the most, that has to be the top of any list going forward. So between now and Inauguration Day, I just want each of you to pick one thing you would like for Democrats to do. It could be a small thing, or it could be a more sweeping thing. Brian?
Talk to the press more. Don't think that we're the enemy just because you don't like us. I have heard that I can't tell you the number of Democrats that say, well, I don't trust you because you're this or you're that. Doesn't matter. You've got to get your message out. So talk to reporters, talk to people. Just talk. For the love of God, quit telling me how superior you are. Just talk.
Okay, I don't buy the whole superiority thing. I think I'm not talking about people you talk to, but just I don't get the whole Democrats are elitist snobs. I think that's
what Democrats tell us.
Okay. I don't get it, but that's a weird message. Adam, hopefully that's not what if Democrats are going to get in front of cameras, hopefully it's not going to be to say that they're elitist snobs. So Adam, what's one thing you'd like to see Democrats do before inauguration?
I'd say stop playing by rules that don't exist. That's how you're going to fight and win.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If only they were listening. But we have to keep hammering this message home, because a lot of people, again, are feeling abandoned and just like we've all been set adrift in the desert, and there's sort of nobody leading the way. So we'll do it, right? We'll do it. We'll keep you guys motivated. We'll keep you guys informed. Don't check out. Take care of yourselves by all means, and don't take everything as if it's completely urgent, because right now this is still the transition period. A lot of things seem like they're happening, but they actually haven't happened yet. If somebody's nominated, they still need to go through the confirmation process in a couple of months. So, we have time, and we're going to keep building. And it's because of everybody who's watching. Thanks to all our
make your watch pitch. You got to do the watch pitch, Mary.
I'm trying. I can't, because I can't channel watch. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best. So
Okay.
yes, I have to practice. So to all of our Twitter people who came to watch, thank you so much. Please subscribe to the channel. Doesn't cost anything. Just have to click that button, like and share the video. Again, to everybody watching and commenting, you guys are awesome. We really appreciate you. To our excellent moderators, to Mercedes who keeps the show running. And that was weird.
That was cool.
It was kind of cool.
We just learned who actually has a centered camera.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? To Brian Karam, Adam Parkameko. Thanks, guys. Awesome spending time with you. We will see you next time. Have a wonderful weekend. And we are live next Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind. Take it easy.